When was the last time you took a leap of faith, trusting that everything is going to work out? Do you crave growth, or are you merely content with the status quo? If you want more out of your life, out of your career, and out of your relationships, you are in the right place. Take the leap and discover how to create a life by design rather than living it by default. Real success starts with you. Now here's your host, Colleen Biggs.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to another episode of Take the Leap with Colleen Biggs. Boy, today's going to be one of those conversations that you are going to be on the edge of your seat the entire time. I feel it because of the fearless female that I have the pleasure of interviewing today, Ms. Jacqueline Wells. And today we're going to be talking about being fearless in your pursuit. But before we do that, I would like to thank our sponsor, Dr. Melissa Balazan. Are you in pain? Are you suffering from anxiety or depression? Do you suffer from constipation? Are you being treated for chronic conditions such as high blood pressure or high cholesterol? Are you tired of being put on medication after medication from your doctor? Are you finally ready to ditch the pills and discover the root cause? Well, at Ask Dr. Melissa, she helps her clients shift from a plethora of pills to just a few truly necessary ones. Together, they leverage the established benefits of Eastern and Western medicines, focus on the true root cause of the issue, and address it from the core. So be sure to schedule your Ask Dr. Melissa consultation today at askdrmelissa.net. Thank you so much for that, Melissa. You've been such a help in my life. So I do recommend anyone, if you are on medications and you are not feeling it, you need to reach out to her. She has been a pharmacist for over 23 years and is absolutely amazing. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump in on how to be fearless in your pursuit. And all of you know my story of being a business coach for 22 years and leaping out of corporate America and being fearless in my pursuit and building a very successful company over the last several years. You are going to meet another female who has done the same over many decades of exceptional experiences and hundreds of conversations with accomplished women. Jacqueline Wells knows that being fearless is not the absence of fear, but the courage to take the next step, to the next one, and then until you create the life and career you really want. She's a trusted advisor to high-achieving women who helps her clients take accountability for their actions and responsibility for their decisions to achieve remarkable results. She's the author of The Fearless Factor, The Fearless Factor at Work, When the Crow Sings, and soon to be published, The Fearless Factor, Women Leading the Way. She has explored human behavior and asked tough questions to discover hard truths for more than 35 years. She's also an active co-partner in a long-term marriage and mother of 4 children who have grown up to be amazing adults. Congratulations on that right there, girlfriend. Because raising amazing adults is the hardest part of anything we just talked about. So let's just get real with that, right, Jacqueline?
Totally.
Yeah. I totally agree with you there. So I'm so thankful to have you here on the show. And I know you've been asking hard questions for over 35 years. Where did this start? Kind of take us back, if you don't mind. Tell my listeners a little bit about you from a personal standpoint and why this pursuit of this fearless factor is something that you've really embraced.
So if we go right back to the beginning, I grew up in what would be called a more than traditional dysfunctional family. My father was an alcoholic. He was also incredibly violent when he was, put in that place. And as the eldest of 3 children, I found myself on the hard end of that. And so violence, sexual abuse, emotional abuse. I mean, I got handed the whole can of worms at a very early age. And so I grew up with the belief that I wouldn't amount to anything. And I was told that over and over again. And, ended up, as I said, living in fear from a very early age. We used to hide under the table when he came in the room. It was that bad. And of course, if he was in the right mood, he would drag you out from under the table. And there it was. So there was a lot of reasons why fear was such an integral part of my early childhood and throughout my life, in fact, because what it did was created a lot of behaviors that were not the best. And I left home at 16 and I went from Edinburgh, Scotland down to London. I knew nobody. I didn't have a job. I had no money and I had nowhere to live. And so I was basically put out on the street with figure it out. And I did. I got a job, found a place to live within a very quick space of time. And then shortly afterwards, I got pregnant. Bingo. We just keep rolling right along.
Okay. For some reason, we have similar stories. This is so crazy because my story's aligning with yours perfectly. And, I was just reading listening to the Audible book on my drive up to Flagstaff, Arizona the other day. My husband and I were Will. And he's the same age as me, 50. And he talked about the dangers of his area, that the father being very violent. I think many of us during that time grew up, or I thought it was normal, right? Grew up in very violent households. He said he could tell by how his father moved his keys off his belt if it was going to be a rough night, if his dad was drunk or if his dad was pissed. Isn't that amazing how we become in tune to that? And I too left home at 17 years old. And I too got pregnant at, 20 years old. Well, you might have been a little bit younger. I'm not sure, but yeah. I mean, this is so similar to, no wonder why we're very much alike, Jacqueline, in our fearless pursuit for success and what we're doing. So please continue your story, because I don't know about my listeners, but I'm on the edge of my seat right now. I knew this was exactly what was going to happen. I just didn't get to be in London. I was like in Arizona when my story happened. So,
I think what happens when you have that kind of childhood is you could end up being an astute observer of human behavior. You watch people's body language. Like you said, your husband knew from the keys what was going to happen next. And you become an observer. And I think that's what's really tuned me into what it is. But the story continues because I got pregnant and I was supposed to give a child up for adoption at birth, but I couldn't do it. Emotionally, I was an absolute wreck. But I had her for 3 months before I had an inciting incident, as they call it in storytelling, where I became very violently oriented. And I realized that she needed to go because I could not handle it. So I gave her up for adoption at the age of 3 months. And, then I went on from there and I married the first guy who said he loved me. And that didn't work out so well either. And I had a child with him. And when the child was 3.5 years old, I walked out on both of them after a duration, but I walked out on both of them. And I left from London to San Francisco. And I arrived in San Francisco, familiar story, didn't know anybody, didn't have any means, or not very much. And I had to figure out how to be an illegal alien because I wasn't supposed to work.
That's right.
I found a job, found a place to live. And then shortly afterwards, I met my current partner, who I've been with for 42 years now. And, did a whole lot of drugs, did a whole lot of alcohol, did a whole lot of stuff that is really not going to help anything. Until finally, around the age of 35, I decided I was pregnant again after 2 abortions, that I was ready for settling down and figuring it out. Mm-hmm. And so I got pregnant for the 3rd time, and I said she would leave me before I left her. And that meant she would go to college, that I would figure this out. Mm-hmm. And so we did. And, that was child number 3 at that point in time. And then I went on to inherit his daughter from Thailand, a complete stranger, about 1.5 years later, when she arrived on my doorstep. And I became a step parent. And then another, I think 1.5 years, 2 years later, I had my final pregnancy, where I had my 5th child at that point. I call it 5th child because my stepdaughter is definitely one of them. And I was 40 years old before I really started to open my life up to other possibilities. And that was to start writing, to start singing, to take up martial arts, to do a whole bunch of stuff. The 40s were an amazing decade for me because that was when I really started to discover me and my strengths. So, there's a lot of story in there. And, you did ask me for the whatevers, but, I'm still here. And as I said, 40s, global travels, writing, music, martial arts, a whole bunch of different things. We moved from San Francisco to Los Angeles to Paris to Amsterdam to New York, and then finally back to San Francisco Bay Area again. And then there's a whole lot more story. I could continue, but...
You know what I love about you, Jacqueline, is it takes courage. It takes persevering through fear to get to where you and I are today, which is not afraid to be brave and share our pasts, to not be afraid to share our experiences that we have of things that happen that maybe other people don't agree with because they have strong opinions. But like I always say, these are things that we've done in our past that maybe we're not proud of, but we have repented for them. We have asked for forgiveness from the individual or whoever else we wronged or felt that we wronged, and we've moved on. Isn't it interesting how other people still hold the judgment against you and they want you to pack it like a pack mule, and they want you to continue carrying that burden with you?
Yeah, I definitely get that. When I walked out of my son at the age of 3.5 years, the condemnation, this is the 1970s, the condemnation was pretty high from a whole bunch of people. How could I? How dare you? Blah, blah, blah. But I'll tell you, there was a lot of separation between my son and I. We now have all my children, we have the closest relationship.
Yeah.
And he's now 47 years old. So there you go.
And I'll tell you, people don't agree with that either. There was a lot of estrangement when my daughter was younger and her father wasn't in her life as much, and he had some things to figure out.
Yeah.
And he didn't come around for years. She's married, has children now. Now he's in her life. And is a grandpa. They call him Gipper to his grandchildren. And I'm thankful that he came around and went on the journey he needed to go on, which was not my journey, was his journey to go on. I couldn't change him. He needed to go on that journey. And Jacqueline, what we're teaching people today that they don't even realize is they are not responsible for what other people think about them. They're only responsible for how they think about themselves.
Totally.
So if you think that you're defeated, if you think that you're wrong, if you have regrets, if you still feel bad about something you did in your past and you're packing that with you, it's heavy. It is going to just keep you stuck. And I say stuck in a word like you don't get the opportunity to experience life to the fullest, and you never will until you let it go.
So let me share a story with you.
Let's do it.
There was a film called The Mission, came out in the 1980s or 90s. I can't remember, but here's the story. Robert De Niro plays a conquistador in the South America, and he's completely, pillaging, murdering, blah, blah, blah. He meets a Jesuit priest played by Jeremy Irons. Jesuit priest convinces him that he needs to come to the mission up in the mountains of Uruguay. And the journey to the mission involves a great deal of traveling through wilderness, over waterfalls, up mountains, blah, blah, blah. The conquistador insists that he has this entire sack of the armor that the conquistadors wear. He has to take it with him. He's on a cliff. Jeremy Irons is at the top of the cliff, and the cliff is very, very steep, and the weight of this armor on his back is going to drag him back down the mountain. And Irons is at the top going, let it go, let it go. It will kill you, let it go. Eventually, he does listen, he lets it go, he makes it up the mountain, he becomes a reformed man. In that moment, I understood that my baggage was the conquistador's mesh net of all his armor, and I had to let it go. And I sobbed my way out of that cinema experience, because in that moment I realized that's the baggage that we all carry in our lives. And I've used that vision And I've shared that story with many people. But think about that, listeners or viewers. Think about the baggage you're carrying and the weight of it and what it's doing to your life. Because to your point, Colleen, you cannot live a fulfilled life. You cannot take a leap into the future while carrying the bullshit.
Yeah, you can't. You have to experience life for you. And I think so many people still want to experience it for other people. In fact, they will even pursue careers based on what other people. And when we're talking about being fearless in your pursuit, it's about not caring what other people think, because what you're doing is what's right for you. It's what you've been called to do. You know, I think of the Disney movie. Many people know this movie, and it is Frozen, right? We've seen Frozen, maybe one, maybe two. I don't know if people have. I actually went to see Frozen 2 myself in the middle of a day on a Wednesday. And I told my husband, I'm taking a break. I need to walk away for a minute. And I'm just going to go to the movies by myself and watch this movie. I don't know if Disney realizes how empowering that movie is for females, because I love it that they're playing it for young girls that are seeing this example. And it's not just a Disney movie for children. It's a movie for females, because she has all of these powers that everyone sees as wrong. They're bad. They're not good. And because that is their perception of them, they shun her away and she leaves because she's scared. So how many times have you dimmed your light and played small in a relationship because you were being overpowered by another person, or at work in a corporate job because you're being overpowered by another person? That's them. It is all them. And then you're allowing them to dim your light. You don't need to. You must be fearless. And when we talk about being fearless, Jacqueline, let's kind of put a scenario around being fearless. What does being fearless mean to you?
So I have a philosophy that fear matters to your success. The reason why is because either it's a barricade or it's a driver for growth. And so being fearless is not the absence of fear. But here's what the thing about fear and so forth is: the fear that I can't handle whatever it is that comes my way. And I'm not the first one to say that. Susan Jeffers said that in the book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And when she endorsed my first book, The Fearless Factor, before she died, she said, I don't normally do endorsements for other fear books, but for you, I think maybe there's something here. So go ahead, but make sure you quote me correctly. So I just quoted Susan Jeffers. You know, you can handle whatever comes your way, provided you're willing to face the fear, because fear is mostly imagination based. We make up stories in order to satisfy our uncertainty, our worries,
validate
that is going on. Or we make up stories about what the future will be like based on negative thinking. So the whole idea for me on fear is change the stories. But here's a fundamental question about fear. Ask yourself, is it true? Do I have empirical evidence that this fear is real? And if you don't, you just made up a story.
Yeah, it is. Have you heard this? It stands for false evidence appearing real. It's false evidence. There's no real evidence. It appears real. We can make it so real to ourselves. I tell my clients, write down everything on the left-hand side that could go right. You know, in this scenario of you doing what you think you want to do, whatever it is. It could be running a marathon. It could be producing a course. It could be writing a book. It could be starting a podcast. It could be anything, right? Taking a new job. Write down everything on the left that could go right. Now, write down everything on the right that you think is going to go wrong. Generally, the right is longer than the left. Unfortunately, it's horrible that it's like that, but that's just how we see ourselves. And I say, if death isn't on the list, go for it, because you can recover from everything else. Fear will break you down or it will build you up. Some people thrive on fear. They're fear junkies, right?
There's
the
no
adrenaline.
I mean, I think I called myself a chaos junkie for years, because if things got too settled, I would mess it up. I would make sure that there was a bit more excitement in there. And I have definitely lived a life that most people would look at, and I can't go into all the stories, but most people would look at and go, why would you want to go there? You know, and the truth of the matter is, I almost felt like I had to. And, the biggest fear for a lot of people when I've talked to them over the years, the fear of failure. Now, let's talk about that for a moment, because the fear of failure is simply an expectation, a decision, a choice that did not go the way that you had expected it to, the way you wanted it to. So what's the worst thing that can happen? Well, the worst thing that can happen, frankly, is we're in a pine box going out the door. Everything else is redeemable. Everything. And it doesn't matter how bad it gets. And I've been going through my own little piece lately. There's a solution. There's always a solution. Even if you don't like the solution, there is a solution. So I would say the fear of failure, there's only one word for it: next. What's next? Because failure is our learning. It's right. What we do to grow.
Yeah.
When you swing for the fences, like I've been doing for the last 2 years, and you know a little bit about this story, you just kind of put everything out there and you hope that it's going to work out. And it may not work out the way that you had planned for it to work out, but there will be something else and it'll be fun.
My favorite stats are the stats that I hear of people that we have deemed to be these amazing athletes, right? Their records are impeccable. And you look at someone like Michael Jordan, and I believe, no one quote me on this. I read it in a book the other day, so I cannot remember the numbers, but it was something like out of 9,700 and some shots, right? in a game, he's missed 1,000 and something shots. He's been put up to hit 23 game winning 100 game winning shots and missed 23 of them or something. That's 25, almost 25% of every shot for a game winning, shot. And it's so interesting to me when you look at how much he failed, but is still by all time. And I don't care who wants to come up against me on this one. He is the all-time elite basketball player, Michael Jordan is. And I know there's several basketball players coming behind him now that are playing more games and they still can't beat his stats. And they're playing more games. It's like Tiger Woods to me on golf. He is still the elite athlete when it comes to golf. No one can touch him on what he's been able to accomplish. He might not be playing so great last weekend at the PGA Championship when obviously he pulled out, but he also has been in 2 major car accidents. I don't even know how the man's even walking, actually, for them to be playing. That just goes to show his failures that he has had. I mean, we could line them up and they well are outweighing his successes. I don't know if anyone heard what I just said. His failures are outweighing his successes. But yet we see him as the elite athlete in golf. So what failures are yours are outweighing your successes, and you're still an expert in your industry. If you're not failing, you're not winning. I'll tell you that right now. You must fail. We must fail to win. Because if we're not failing, we're not learning, we're not growing, we're not changing. We're stuck. We're stagnant.
Yeah. And I think what you're saying here is, and you use the word pursuit. And pursuit is also aligned with the word relentless. So those athletes that you've mentioned are relentless. And one of the things that you and I have in common is we're pretty relentless. I could use another word or an adjective in front of that, but I won't. But we are very, very relentless. And we're also incredibly resilient, because resilience is another big piece of the fear factor, which is you've got to have the ability to bounce back. So no matter how bad it gets, you know that tomorrow you pick yourself up and you get on with whatever needs to be done. And it's simply, in very basic terms, today is your only reality. This moment is our only reality. What we spoke about 5 minutes ago, I couldn't tell you. And what's going to happen in 5 minutes from now, I have no idea. But I can tell you right now, this is my reality. And we have to remember that. And it's that mindfulness piece that I think as we get older, we begin to realize. And I got a couple of more decades on you. So, a bit of experience.
That's why I look up to you, Jacqueline, that you have so much experience. I'm learning from those that have gone before me. You know, that's what the pursuit that we should be in, is having the wisdom and learning from others and taking our skill sets, our knowledge, our experiences, and everything we've had in the past and applying it to what we do today.
Yeah. And you've said a couple of times, you know, what other people are thinking is none of your business. And I totally agree with that as well. And frankly, the older you get, the less you care about what other people are thinking. You know, you get to a point where you go, I don't give a shit, frankly.
That is correct. It's
you don't like it. Yeah, it's up to you, you know.
It was interesting because I've never really been a very competitive person. And I realized that because I married someone who's very competitive and the entire family is very competitive. That was when I realized, like, oh, I'm not very competitive. And you and I, both in our 40s, went through karate. Mine was Taekwondo. I graduated, with my black belt, you as well. And you and I both know that obtaining a black belt takes an immense amount of breaking through fear, an immense amount of perseverance in your pursuit to be able to get that belt.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. It has not come easy. I mean, going to college for 4 years and getting a degree is easier than getting a black belt. And it took me 3.5 years to get my black belt, and the tests I had to go through and the boards I had to break and the bruises I had all over my body and my hands and the competitions that I was in and women that I had to fight and, perfect forms and those types of things. It is a relentless pursuit. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I did Taekwondo when I first started when I was 43, and I managed to get up to red belt. And then we moved from Los Angeles to Paris, and I ended up taking up karate at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did my karate black belt, that was a big switch. But I broke my hands on boards in Taekwondo.
Yep.
Teacher said, well, you've got the strength, you can go through it, except, I'm still a novice, but I break my hand. As you say, bruises and so forth. We could share stories forever about, sitting in elegant restaurants with bruises all the way up and down your arm.
I think people thought I was being abused by my husband, honestly, because I always had bruises all over myself. It's interesting that you say that, Jacqueline, because I just want to share one last thing before we talk a little bit more about your programs and what you do and how people can connect with you. I think you're going to remember this, and this just came to me, and I think it's important that we share this. Our masters, both Jacqueline's and mine, taught us that when you are using your force and your speed to break a belt, you must break through the board. You must apply the energy to break through the board. If you do not, let me tell you what happens. You break a bone, you're bruised. All that force and speed and energy that you went to push through the board all comes back up into your body. It is the most painful thing you will ever feel, other than probably being electrocuted in your life, if you want me to be honest, because we've had babies. So we know what it's like to have babies and how painful that is. All of that energy, and I'm sharing that because if you muster up, the energy and the urge and the speed and whatever it is that you need to do, that you're moving in your business, and you decide to stop before you've reached the top, before you've won, before you've become the expert, before you've hit success, all of that comes all back on you, and it will just bury you.
Yeah,
we
no
must continue to break through, because I felt it in my own body.
Can I share one more thing?
Yes,
I learned in martial arts.
please.
I applied this to everything in life. If you're in a fight, you've got to be committed to being in the fight. The second thing is you've got to be focused, and you're going to be focused on your opponent, not by looking at where their hands and feet are going, but look in their eyes. You can see everything in your peripheral vision. It's totally fine. The third piece is going to be discipline. You've got to show up and do thousands and thousands of hours of repetition. The fourth piece is follow through. Follow through is really essential. And in many places, that's where people fall down, is on the follow through. Somebody throws a punch, you've got to be able to block it. You've got to be able to counter it. The fifth one is consistency. Consistency is doing the same things over and over again. And in all our training, it was like, just do it again, do it again. I had one French teacher who would stand against the wall with his arms folded and he'd say, encore, encore, again, again. And he told me that every time that I did the best was when I reached that wall and I knew I had to go over it, under, around it, or through it, but I could not stop. And the last piece of that is perseverance. You fall down, you get up. And it doesn't matter how many times you fall down, you get back up again. Commitment, focus, discipline, follow through, consistency, and perseverance. They all apply to how we pursue being fearless.
It is. It's how we pursue everything in our life, our relationships, our businesses, everything in life. So I think that was a great note to leave on. Absolutely. Thank you, Jacqueline. This conversation could go on forever, and I knew it would. And Jacqueline is absolutely amazing, as you guys can tell. And she's got many more stories, and she is someone you're going to want to connect with. She's got more. I'm telling you, way more. We've had a lot of conversations. I'm in her circle. She's in my circle. We talk all the time, and you're going to want to get closer to Jacqueline. She is going to help you get where you need to go. So, Jacqueline, tell them a little bit about your transformational strategies for success program that you have, how they can get connected with that. I know we have your email out there. We've got your website. But what is one of the best ways? How do you prefer people connect with you so that you can start chatting with them?
So here's the deal. You can either go to the website, JacquelineWales.com, and Transformational Strategies for Success is in its pilot program stage at this point. And I'm offering the opportunity to work with me for 3 months with this online personal development program that's a result of 12 years of my content being put up online. And you also get to interact with me at a Q&A session once a month for 3 months. And I'm offering a really special deal on this at $250 right now, which is less than the cost of 1 hour of coaching with me. And you can find all the details on my website, on the homepage, and on the Transformational Strategies page itself. And take a look at that and see if it's something that appeals to you. There's also buttons on the website if you want to talk to me, where you can set up a calendar invite or a calendar date with me. But I'm looking for people to engage in the what I call the TSS program, for me to really test this out. And also, I know it's transformational. People who are willing to commit to doing the work on this program, it will absolutely kick your butt and make you a star, because you will be able to overcome a lot of the obstacles and get the insights and skills you need to truly move your life to the next level. And I stand by that. That's my guarantee. And it's like they say in AA, if you do the work, it works.
Yeah. And I'm going to just go back to what we've been teaching this entire time about being fearless in your pursuit. You've been fearless in your pursuit and have applied all this energy up to this point. Now it's time to go through the board, right? Break through the board. This is your chance to break through and continue working on your transformation for your success. For the listeners. So make sure you reach out to Jacqueline. We've got all of her information for LinkedIn, how you can connect with her there, how you can connect with her via email. It's all at your fingertips. It's right there in the descriptions on our Facebook page. For any of those, please go out and follow Colleen Biggs as well as Leap for Ladies. Get out there and get all the information you need. Get to meet Jacqueline in person, have the conversations with her, get on Zoom with her. She's absolutely phenomenal. She's up to some big things. You're going to want to get in her circle because she will bring you in on those big things that she's up to. So, Jacqueline, this was an amazing conversation.
Well, I love it. And I love you too. You're awesome. And thank you for the invitation to come and talk this morning. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And ladies, listeners, I want to remind you, you're the only you that has ever been. You're the only you that's ever going to be. You have two choices. You can be fearless in your pursuit, or you can do nothing. You can allow fear, this false evidence of appearing real, this story that you've made up, stop you from pursuing the biggest dreams possible in your life. Imagine what that would be like. Imagine what your life would be like if you were living exactly the way you desired today. And if that's not what's happening today, then you're not living the life and you need to make some changes. I'm just going to tell you that right now. So until next time, You are strong, and always, always, always be you. There is nothing better. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. Until next time, we'll see you then. Bye-bye for now.
We hope you enjoyed our show today, as our guests shared their secrets on designing their life by taking the necessary leaps to expand their influence and attract the right people and clients into their lives. To start these easy steps for yourself, be sure to visit www.colleenbiggs.net/freebies to download the 7 ways to increase your exposure today.